Looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Poole Locke YouTube channel. I'm James Locke, and today we're going to answer some of the Ask James question of the day. So we have this question from Daniel, and he says, I plan to retire in 10 years or so. I went to my advisor, and he was able to estimate my retirement income. So is that reliable? All right, Daniel, well, it depends how your advisor did it, but I would tell you there's a high likelihood the answer is no. And the reason for that is because we're all traditionally trained to make that retirement income calculation the same way, focused on a total return approach. So for example, I'm going to use $1 million just because it's a nice round number. Okay, so the first thing I was trained to do in answering that question you had, Daniel, is how much income can I get 10 years from now? Well, I was trained to take that $1 million and have an assumed total return growth rate over the next 10 years. So let's assume 7%, just because the numbers are neat and clean. So at 7% total return growth rate, I double my money in 10 years. That means 10 years later, I now have $2 million. Then at that point, I snap my fingers and I shift to an income-focused portfolio, which again, I always talk about, why you don't want to wait to the last minute to transition to investing for income production. But if I did, I might get 4% income yield, let's say, from bonds and income-oriented investments. So that's $80,000 a year off $2 million. But here's the problem. There's a lot of assumptions that go into that traditional approach, Daniel. It assumes that timing at the end is going to be ideal for selling growth assets to invest for income. But what if this were the year 2000? And what if in 2010 your $1 million is down to 800,000 after a poor decade for stocks? Well, then if you're in the growth approach, all you really have is a dividend, right? And that dividend, if you're in the market, let's say 1.5%, that's $12,000 a year of income. So the problem is, in this example, if an advisor were completely honest with you, they would say, Daniel, when you get to retirement, your income investing potential is going to be anywhere between 12,000 on the low end and 80,000 on the high end. But I bet if any advisor were that blunt, you probably wouldn't hire them, or you would leave. Ultimately, most advisors are not trained to convey that wide range of income outcomes. So now we have developed a whole different way to calculate reliable retirement income by investing for income production well before retirement. And what I believe is a more mathematically and academically correct way of doing it. Right? So with that income-focused approach over 10 years, I could tell you that your retirement income should be somewhere between $55,000 and $65,000 with a high degree of confidence. So maybe it's not as high as the best case $80,000 scenario, but calculating it properly by investing for income and making that transition 10 years out could put you in a very narrow range where you know within a few $1,000s how much you're going to get versus the difference between 12,000 and 80,000 under the traditional approach. So investing, a dedicated portion into income producing assets, bonds, dividend stocks, REITs, BDCs, well before retirement reduces reliance on uncertain total returns and market timing risk. It provides more visibility and control over your future income stream. All right, Daniel, listen, I hope explaining the difference in approaches helps clarify why those retirement income estimates can often be unreliable if not done properly. Great question. And hey, if you'd like your question answered like Daniel's, go ahead, send it in. Send that question to poollocke@poollocke.com. All right, let's move on. Let's go on to our second question here today. And we have an email from Lewis. He says, how do I know how quickly or gradually to make that shift to the income first mindset? Lewis, that is a great question, right? And let's dive into that a little bit. If you saved enough where, you say, okay, if I go to an income first approach with all my assets right now, 10 years out from retirement, snap my fingers, then I'll have enough income generated. Or if I reinvest that investment income, it'll grow to be enough income, not assuming any additional growth assumptions, just through the reinvestment of the known interest, dividends, and income distributions. Then you can do it right away. You can just snap your fingers and make the full shift to investing for income production, because again, you won the game. You can't win it twice. Don't try to win the game twice. If you're far behind your investment savings and you find that you're not, you've got to take more risk and you can't fully transition until you get closer to retirement. If you're a little bit behind, you can shift gradually. You can move some money over to bonds and income-oriented investments like dividend stocks and REITs, and leave some money in the growth assets. So it really depends upon how much you've saved and how far or close you are to retirement. It also depends on where the markets are currently. If you've just had a huge run up, you might want to be more cautious in transitioning. If markets have dropped and you think they've bottomed out, maybe you could take a little more risk initially. Today, for example, we have some of the highest interest rates we've seen in a long time. You can lock into things like bonds and preferred stocks at relatively higher income yields than you could have gotten for a long period. Well, you might want to then consider making that income transition a little faster so you can secure some good income streams at higher rates for longer. Because you can still take stock market risk over the next few years if needed, but if interest rates go back down again, as the Fed has projected, then any lump sum growth money you have in 5 to 7 years may actually generate less income at that time in the future than it could today when rates are elevated. So really, you have to use some common sense and take into account the current market environment. That's where a good retirement income specialist can help with the art and timing of executing that shift from an excessive growth focus to an income first investment approach as you near retirement. They can analyze your specific situation, chart a customized transition path for you, and that'll help you move into retirement in a better way. Thanks for your question on this important topic, Lewis. And if you would like to send in your question, you can do so by emailing them to poolelock@poolelock.com. If you like what you heard, go ahead, like and subscribe to our channel. I'm James Locke, the Retirement Income Source. See you guys next time.
Money on my mind, looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine. Retirement is near, don't you live in fear. Listen up, my friend, let me make it clear.